Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're happy to have SRECTrade and Troy from Dependable with us. We're going to talk about some clean fuel programs that will help you in your transition to cleaner tech. We're going to give folks a minute to show up. I see we have some of our friends like Anthony's now in and David from 4Gen. Thank you guys for joining us. We have a couple warehousing folks and some of our SRECTrade folks joining in as well. As with all our HTA webinars, this is for educational purposes only. You cannot repurpose or redistribute this presentation, but if you need to get a hold of the HTA or any of our presenters today, I'll include a follow-up email with their contact information, or you can always reach out to eric@harbortrucker.com. We've had, I don't know how many of these webinars already, but same with all of them. You can ask questions throughout the program. You have an option to add your questions to the chat. We'll get to them during Q&A, and I'll be able to respond via the chat as well. If you're just listening in on your cell phone, go ahead and shoot me an email, eric@harbortrucker.com, and we'll ask your questions live during Q&A. It looks like maybe we should give folks maybe another minute to start rolling in. But in the meantime, I'm going to turn it over to Mike for him to introduce himself and the other presenters.
Thank you very much, Eric, and thanks to the Harbor Trucking Association and for everyone who's joining us here today. We greatly appreciate it. So we're going to spend about 30 minutes, presenting this educational material, and then have about 30 minutes of Q&A. And throughout, there will be some polling questions, data shared. The purpose of today's conversation is to make sure everyone understands the value of these programs. So you've heard of California Low Carbon Fuel Standard, or LCFS. That is one of many different kinds of environmental commodity programs around the country. They represent a lot of money, and they're critical sources of funds to help you to fund your transition to cleaner equipment. And it's a broad range of different kinds of equipment that qualify for these funds. So if you're here today to understand how you could get paid an extra revenue stream to help fund the deployment and operation of this cleaner equipment, electric forklifts, electric yard trucks, high-speed on-road tractors, etc., you are in the right place. Next slide, please. So here with me today is Amon Norden and Troy Musgrave. I'll introduce each of them, but then let them do a little bit of a self-introduction. I'm Mike Saxton. I'm the Managing Director for Clean Transportation here at SRECTrade. So I run the side of the business that manages the California LCFS and like programs around the country for clients. Before I moved over to SRECTrade to run the business here, I built a company called Orange EV. I was the Chief Commercial Officer, essentially responsible for all the outside functions from marketing all the way through to sales, regulatory incentive, and deployment of electric yard trucks. I've worked with many of the folks in the community here for that purpose for many years. And I've worked with SRECTrade for a long time to help fleet and facilities customers understand a broad range of these incentive programs and use them to achieve the funds that helped pay for deployment and operation of clean equipment. So that's myself. Iman, if you would introduce yourself, and then we'll introduce Troy, our guest today.
Sure thing. Thanks, Mike. Hi, everyone. My name is Iman Norden. Thank you all for being here today. I am one of the business development managers here at SRECTrade. A lot of what I do involves education and outreach to fleet operators and clean equipment owners, essentially helping them understand what this program is about, what it means to them, how to get them started, and essentially bringing them to success with this program. Previously, I managed a solar state incentive program in Illinois, so I do have this background in renewables that transfers over to the clean transportation side.
Yeah, thank you, Iman, very much for being here and your help today. I'd also like to introduce Troy Musgrave. I've known and respected Troy for years. He'll use different words. I think of Troy as a great example of the kind of leader that has been fundamental to demonstrating what's possible and then actually sharing the knowledge of what we can do to deploy the cleaner equipment, operationally how to make it work, and financially how to make it, just how to make the numbers work, because that's not easy sometimes. So Troy, if you would introduce yourself to the group.
Thank you, Mike. Again, I'm Troy Musgrave, Director of Process Improvement for Dependable Highway Express. I've been with Dependable now for 20 very great years and have had much opportunity with this company. In the last 40 years, I've worked in this industry, and primarily our main objective is to, our main objective is to pick up and deliver our customers' freight and deliver on time. That's what we do. That's our core competency. For the last 4 years, I've been involved in a program, been the point person for Volvo Lights and Dependable Highway Express's participation in the program, which is to take one of our facilities here in Ontario, California, and introduce electric vehicles of different types. We are doing very well in this program. It's matured to its pilot program objective, and I'm now very deep in collecting and analyzing data for the performance of these vehicles.
Yeah, thank you, Troy, so much. Troy will come back a little bit later to share more of the journey and any insights on how to make it more cost effective in the process. Thank you, Troy, for being here. Next slide, please. So bottom line, if you take nothing else away from today's conversation, please know these 4 key things. 1, California LCFS can mean a lot of money to fund the deployment and operation of these pieces of equipment that you're trying to, to get into your operations, whether it's electric forklifts, maybe hydrogen fuel cell vehicles at a certain point, electric yard trucks and others. This is a lot of money. LCFS is specifically for that purpose. And the program regulation, well, where anybody can sign on and set up an account, there are a lot of systemic barriers that result in, well, very few being able to use the program and benefit from it. Lots of reasons. You need scale, you need understanding of the regs, and you need a technology back end oftentimes for that scale and complexity. And you have to manage everything in such a way that you can withstand a CARB audit on the back end, because they always have the ability to come back and see your paper trail and the data accuracy that led to issuance of credits and you getting paid. So lots of money for the purpose of helping you in this journey to deploy zero emission equipment, but it's not easy, and it's not easy to do in compliance in such a way that you'll make it through a CARB inspection if that happens. And SRECTrade is here purpose-built to manage these programs for you, while telling you to get you paid and tell you exactly what we did on your behalf. Next slide, please.
Let's pause here real quick, because I think we have our first full question of the day.
Yes, thank you.
Yep. How much do you know about LCFS? So we'd love to learn more about your level of understanding for the program. So we'll leave this up here for a couple minutes for you to answer.
Maybe not a couple minutes.
Sorry, a couple seconds.
Yeah, maybe just a couple more seconds. It looks like we have about 70% of the audience has already voted.
Okay. Let's go ahead and continue that. All right. And there are the poll results. So a couple experts, but most folks are pretty new to the program or just some initial pieces of the program. Okay, well, let's address that. And hopefully we answer your questions here today. And if not, you know, the educational process is free. We are here to make sure you understand and are taking advantage of the program. So a little bit about SRECTrade first. Bottom line, our purpose is to enable participation in and you benefiting under these programs. They're not easy, and there are systemic barriers to participation. So it takes scale and other things to be able to use them. SRECTrade was born when environmental commodities, this kind of program was first innovated years ago, and it's all we do. We are the ones that manage and monetize all this complex regulatory activity for you. By year end, we'll have more than 70 employees doing this across North America. And you see some stats here. We've got more than 54,000 assets under management. So pieces of equipment that are eligible and registered under programs, whether it's a charging station for a passenger vehicle, or an electric yard truck, or a bank for electric forklifts, or a CNG fueling station, or a hydrogen generation station. Those are the assets, but those assets also include solar arrays on rooftops. So any kind of clean energy usage that's eligible, or clean energy generation like solar, we're the ones that actually manage that program activity. And under the California LCFS, Low Carbon Fuel Standard Program, we are the largest of the agent managers that provides this service to get you paid. Our technology platform on the back end was purpose-built to enable SRECTrade as it manages all this activity at scale. And it's at such a scale and purpose-built that, you know, when some companies get to a certain point, they'll license our technology and continue to keep their data in our software application just to manage this very specialized activity. You can see that not only have we been around a long time, but we have transacted a lot of these environmental commodities, more than $750 million in commodity value at this point. And that's across 20 unique types of commodities, where California LCFS is just one type, in 14 different compliance markets across North America. Through it all, with no term requirements, we've got more than 99% annual client retention rate. Boiling it down, this is a program that you want to take advantage of, and it's really easy to get started, partly because you can manage as you need along the way and make changes for whatever is best for you. SRECTrade is also plugged into all of the regulatory markets and programs so that we can be the voice of industry to advise those regulators on how to make the program successful as they are designing and evolving them, but also to advise customers, educate and advise you on what they really are, where the opportunity is, and how to get as much out of them as possible. Next slide, please. All right, so I've alluded to it. Just know that while California LCFS is kind of the granddaddy of these kinds of clean fuel programs, they exist in other markets, and they're moving quickly across North America. So currently, for those of you especially that have operations in multiple geographic markets, California and Oregon have clean fuel programs, or low carbon fuel standard like programs, that are active. We are managing client assets today and getting them paid. Now, coming soon, Canada, by the end of the year, we could be generating credits that we monetize in 22 for Canadian operations. State of Washington, the governor just signed into law their LCFS-like program. It'll take them a year, maybe a year and a half to stand it up, but it's coming. And companies that are really a little bit forward-looking, they're already incorporating this knowledge into their planning for different technology paths and equipment types, fuel types. You see the other colored states there. There are different states that have had legislation for LCFS in debate, and there are various points in the process to make a a reality. So coming quickly. Also importantly, you see that fourth bullet point, critical. There are a whole myriad of different grant and incentive programs, regulatory requirements with which you have to comply. This group especially has a lot coming at it. We are very understanding of that complexity and how difficult it can be. So bottom line, when it comes to California LCFS and let's say the renewable energy programs, where if you have solar on your roof, could you get paid for that as well? Answer is yes, and there's no reason you don't want to take advantage. A lot of these other regulatory programs are built around the low carbon fuel standard like programs as a centerpiece. So that generally means, without exception, they're stackable. So you may pursue the grant and incentives that help pay for the upfront cost, HVIP, CORE, maybe a Carl Moyer grant, DEER grant, or others. Use them. Also, however, make sure you're taking advantage of California LCFS because you can stack them, okay? Also importantly, if you do not participate, know that there's no going back more than a couple months. So every quarter you lose the opportunity forever to participate in the program and get paid. So there's urgency. And it doesn't matter what you have. Even if you have nothing at this point, you want to learn about it and start planning forward. Next slide, please. All right, so what the heck is California LCFS? And importantly, you know, for those of you who have operations in other states, Oregon, Canada, Washington, and others coming, just know that these other programs are a little bit different, but they tend to be modeled after and similar to California LCFS, okay? So what's the purpose of the program? It's to reduce carbon intensity, so in the transportation fuels. So think diesel and gasoline. The petroleum industry is legally allowed to sell fuel that is dirtier or above the carbon intensity standard. However, if it does, it has to pay in penalties. They can avoid those penalties by buying credits. So boiling it down, LCFS is a compliance program that targets the petroleum industry to get them to reduce the carbon in their fuel products. On the flip side, it is an incentive program for you, those who are moving ahead quicker to deploy and operate the equipment that burns cleaner fuel, electricity, biofuels, ethanol, CNG, hydrogen. For most of you here on the line, the big opportunity is in electric, simply because of the way rights to credits and who gets to claim the benefit, the way those rules work, okay? You see there in the chart, the black line with the dots. Every year, that carbon intensity reduction gets stricter and stricter. So the petroleum industry has to every year make sure its diesel and gasoline is cleaner and cleaner and cleaner. They are not meeting that standard generally, and so they're in that pink range and they create deficits. You, those who are operating, and it's about the operating of the and consuming of the cleaner fuel, like electricity in a charging station, you could be generating credits and getting paid on that. And that's what we make happen for you. Next slide, please. So how does all this work? Well, there's a lot below the surface in interfacing with the systems, making sure we understand the regs and are getting the correct data and documents, and registering assets, and then reporting the clean fuel usage by those assets. So think electric forklift and the charging bank and the electricity dispensed in that charging bank, or an electric bus and the charging station for that electric bus, or a hydrogen, fueled bus, for example. We register the assets and everything that goes into that. We then, on an ongoing basis, capture and report the usage of the cleaner fuel, and we work with the regulator, in this case for LCFS CARB, to get the credits issued. This is the tradable commodity. SRECTrade will then do everything else to aggregate that into sellable blocks and take it to market for sale. And we do everything in between so that what you experience is you doing your day-to-day business, benefiting from the cleaner equipment in the process, and getting paid. Iman.
I'd like to stop you here, Mike, for another polling question of the day. This question is geared towards understanding what type of clean equipment or vehicles that you are looking to adopt or already have. This is multiple choice, so feel free to select however many that applies to your organization. And as always, we'll give it a couple of seconds.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Iman. Look at the results there. So it's a fairly broad deployment. So that's really great to see. So 2 thoughts there. 1, if you're not taking advantage of LCFS, let's talk now and get you paid. 2, if some of you are, knowing that there's lots of opportunity for interpretation and service and how we all go about this, let us tell you what you could be getting paid and the broader array of help that is available to you to make sure you are taking advantage of the program as fully as possible. And yeah, the education is free, the analysis is free, so let us help you get as much out of this as possible. Next slide, please. All right. Also, very critically, under the rules of the LCFS program, there are ways to make even more money. Knowing that the purpose of LCFS, low carbon fuel standard, is to reduce carbon intensity in fuels, and where some of those fuels, electricity, well, you've got a choice in what you use and how clean it is. So do you use the grid electricity coming to you from the utility that has multiple sources of electricity pumped into the grid? Some are cleaner, maybe a wind farm that's hooked up to the grid, but some are dirtier, coal-fired plants, etc. So that has a certain carbon intensity in the grid electricity. Now, SRECTrade lowers that carbon intensity further by sourcing and doing some things on the back end with the regulator, CARB, to source and pair renewable energy. And along the way, those clients of ours, get the benefit of being able to say they are using 100% renewable energy while getting paid more. CARB's formula are all about carbon reduction. And if you are using renewable energy, not average grid, and lowering the carbon intensity, that means we get more credits issued on your behalf, and that turns into more money in your pockets. And that's something, since our company, SRECTrade, was born in the renewables timeframe when those renewable energy certificates or credits were first innovated. We've been doing this a long time, and that is a standard feature, and it comes included with the service to make you as much as possible and to help you be able to afford and deploy and operate as much clean equipment as soon as possible. Next slide, please. All right, so show me the money. What's it worth to you? These are estimates based on actual customer experience. So per workplace charger that may be charging a passenger vehicle, if you own that charging station and the rights to the credits, you can be getting paid up to $2 grand annually. Electric yard trucks, that's a big number. A hardworking yard truck often is working around the clock 2 to 3 shifts and consuming a lot of energy. We are paying clients up to 13 grand. Some could be earning even more annually per truck in incremental revenue. And you see per forklift, shockingly, up to 3 grand per electric forklift. It's a lot of money. that you could be getting with no upfront costs, with no out-of-pocket costs, and in a lot of ways is nothing but supplemental, incremental resource to continue funding these cleaner pieces of equipment. Next slide, please. All right, so key things to remember to be able to maximize your benefits under the program. First, know your rights and where you would have the rights to the credits. Generally, for electric, the credit rights start with the owner of the charging station, but can be contractually assigned to anyone. And it's easy to accidentally or in an unintended way sign away those credit rights. If that's happened, let's talk. We might be able to help you. Second, data. Where we're registering the equipment, the charging stations, and reporting the electricity dispensed in them, we will need access to that charging data. And there's multiple ways to do it, but just know that getting access to that data is a critical part of reporting the cleaner energy dispensed through those pieces of equipment that we register for you. Monetizing. So we have some clients that actually set up their own LRT accounts to work with CARB and realized, holy smokes, I don't know what to do next. And even more importantly, they can't sell the credits if they were to get them issued. So we're helping many clients that got to a barrier and couldn't move any further, simply if for no other reason that the buyers, remember, are the petroleum industry. And if you were in their shoes having to buy these credits, would you want 1,000 small transactions or a few very large ones? They want a few very large ones, and they're not going to be interested in buying onesie, twosie, smaller lots. And so there is real strength in numbers. SRECTrade has that scale and has direct bilateral relationships with those purchasing entities. So the ExxonMobils, the Shells, and others, there are special agreements that you have to put in place. And oh, by the way, they don't want to buy credits from just anybody because this is a compliance product for them. Those credits have to be of quality and durable so that the regulator doesn't come back and say, yeah, that wasn't done correctly, poof, they're gone, and invalidate them. So the buyers of these credits are buying to be in compliance with a very important program, and they cannot afford to buy credits that are not going to meet that intent over time, their compliance obligation, okay? Also importantly, these regulations are evolving. CARB learns and evolves. We've all experienced that, but it's happening across the country. And you saw SRECTrade operates in 14 and growing markets where everything's a little bit different, and you have to be plugged in, working directly with the regulators and have really day-to-day working relationships with them to know how to really implement, operationalize these programs and benefit. So a lot to do to make sure you're really getting everything out of these programs you could, and that's what SRECTrade was built to do. Next slide, please. And this kind of brings it home. SRECTrade was purpose-built to handle everything for you behind the scenes. That's what's on the right. On the left, we're intending to really convey, you do what you do best. We just take the information required and turn it into money and then deposit those proceeds into your bank account while telling you what we did, giving you access to information online that tells you down to the asset level. So let's say charging station, the kilowatt hours dispensed, the credits generated, and the proceeds paid as a consequence. And all of that you can download and have for your own records and ongoing decision making. This happens with no out-of-pocket costs. So all the work that SRECTrade would do for you is at no upfront costs. We only get paid when you get paid, and the funds are en route back to you as a result of selling the credits that we generated, that we got issued for you. So incremental, nothing out of pocket, and again, nothing but benefit. Next slide, please. Now, what I'd like to do is bring Troy Musgrave back from Dependable to share a little bit of his story, what they did, and really how they took advantage of how they're taking advantage of LCFS as well. Troy, if you would.
Again, thank you for having me, Mike, and it's a pleasure to be talking with our audience today. Full transparency, I am an SRECTrade customer, and I'm hoping to kind of share how I went about finding SRECTrade and why I selected them as a partner in this LCFS program. Well, Dependable Highway Express has been in business since 1950. We've been a primary California LTL carrier for all these years, and obviously, California regulation has led the way in clean air regulatory changes throughout my history in transportation. We offer a very large network of supply chain solutions, and again, we're domiciled here in California primarily, and so we really look to try to prepare ourselves for future growth and compliance within the state of California. Next slide, please. So as you can imagine, those of you that have undertaken any kind of electrification projects, there's a dynamic shift, and there's a lot of complexity. It's not similar to purchasing. In our case, we purchased battery electric equipment and infrastructure. We also, installed solar energy generating equipment and storage. So you can imagine the complexity here. There's permitting involved cities, counties, all types of different organizations that you need to work with and partner with to achieve these kinds of programs. So, Mike mentioned it many times. I heard the word regulation over and over again. And also these incentive programs, while they're great, they are complex in their application filings, and there are many things that will take you immense amount of time to try to figure out and collect and be able to apply for these incentives. So, finding a partner that can navigate this, that is a specialist in this field, just like we are a specialist in our business, is essential. Next slide, please. So what I want to do is share my experience with SRECTrade. Well, I did the research and shopped. When I can tell you, there's like more than 100 different companies providing these types of services. And one of the things that I found was that SRECTrade was kept coming up when discussing LCFS credits with our colleagues in this space. And so I reached out to them. They were very responsive. A team came out to visit us at our location here in Ontario. We sat down. They went through a very detailed presentation, similar to what Mike has shared with you today, really helped educate us on what was available and how they can help us achieve it. After, again, going back to colleagues and talking about this, understanding a little bit more in detail, I got back to SRECTrade, sorry about that, Mike, SRECTrade, and agreed to use their services. We've now been working together for more than a year, actually 2 years almost from the day I first reached out to them, but for more than a year. And I'll tell you, they made it very easy for me. They asked for easy to get information. I shared it with them. In some cases, I even shared the site information so that they could get the data themselves. It was, they led the way in collecting the information, filing the applications, making sure all the regulatory requirements were met. With with very little effort on my part or my company's part to try to help out. Once the recording was taking place and we went through our first set of credits to sell, you know, the transaction came back really simply. You know, I got an email from SRECTrade saying, hey, you know, you've sold credits and, you know, your funds will be deposited by, you know, the next few days. I think it's 5 to 10. Is that right, Mike? 5 to 10 days.
Yep, it's very quick.
Yeah.
The intent's to turn it into money that jumps into your bank account on a regular basis. No monkeying around or questioning the timing. Whatever we can get for you, the most possible, it comes on a regular basis.
And so that was a message sent to me where I didn't have to go search for it. However, they do have a website and I do have it saved on my desktop, and it's very simple. I just click on it. It shows me all of my trades, all of my accounts, all of the transactions, right? In what state they're in, either they're available, they're in processing, or they've been paid, right? It's downloadable, right? So all the information is there to share with maybe our controller if he needs information. It's very easy for me to pull the data and send it over to them. So what did I get out of this? I'll tell you. We've electrified probably less than 2% of our petroleum fueled equipment, less than 2%. And in the first year, we netted over $90,000. You know, that's to me impressive. That's money that we can use to pay for this very expensive and very difficult task of electrifying our fleet right now. And it's needed, it's necessary. You know, so those of you that are in this market know that the prices for this equipment is extremely high, and we are all looking for ways to offset our TCO. So I can't recommend more. I mean, Mike has done an excellent job of telling you this is no upfront money from you, yet you can get a return and help pay down that total cost of ownership by collecting these LCFS credits. And for my experience, SRECTrade has done an excellent job.
Thank you, Troy. We really appreciate that. And that you're willing to just share your experience and offer up the benefit to others as a consequence. Next slide, please. You know, and with that, I don't know what more I could say in follow up to that, Troy. Thank you. Now what we'd like to do is just open it up for Q&A, and I'll turn it over back to Iman and Eric.
Thank you guys for presenting. So we had some questions come in via email, but if you guys have questions in the audience, you have a raise hand feature. We can unmute you. I can ask the questions for you, or you can enter it into the chat. If you're just listening in via cell phone, go ahead and shoot me an email, eric@harbortrucker.com, and we'll just ask them live. So one of the first questions that came in was, are there variable amounts that you're paid per credit? And what would you say is the average amount you get paid per credit?
Huh. Well, maybe I'll take lead on that, but ask others to weigh in. So SRECTrade's process is to work with CARB's quarterly cycle, and then at the end of each reporting cycle, when the credits are made available for sale, to do that and to simply go to market, because this is very much a market-based mechanism. There's a supply of credits and a demand for credits, and it's a series of bilateral relationships, but CARB makes available data that says, in aggregate, here's where the pricing has been, market pricing to sell LCFS credits, and we, SRECTrade, the seller of the credits, and the counterparties, the petroleum industry, they have access to that data. We all have what we're going to have to agree to a price. So generally, the price that's agreed to on a regular quarterly basis, where we're liquidating every quarter routinely, it's within a very tight range of what the market says your best market price is going to be. Now, can that price vary, and will different providers maybe pay you differently? Yes, there's a difference between the price to sell the credits and the price you are paid, okay? And the difference is, well, is there a cost of generating more of those credits, like what we'll do to source renewable energy for you? That results in more revenue, but also the cost of the service. So it's a very small percentage on the back end that also gets deducted. So there's the sale price, and then there's the net proceeds, and that'll depend on your relationship with your provider. Generally, we've found that you're going to make as much or more, and sometimes significantly, if you let us manage this for you. Iman, Troy, did you have anything else to share there about just the price and the proceeds you'd realize?
Yeah, I'll talk a little about the market pricing itself. As Mike mentioned, it's market-based, so the price can fluctuate. One thing to note, though, is there is a ceiling price set to these LCFS credits so that the price doesn't get away and become unsustainable for compliance. The ceiling price is around 217, 218. As for the last couple of quarters or so, it's been trading between 175 to 185, so pretty close to the ceiling. What I meant to say is, if you are already running electric equipment or clean equipment, now is the best time to get started while the pricing is still pretty solid and stable.
That brings another question up. Oh, sorry, Troy, I didn't mean to cut you guys off, but when you mentioned the previous, Troy, did you have any more to add to the pricing question? Sorry about that.
All I would add is that I don't know what mine is right now, but it would be very easy to find out. I download my transactions and it'd be easy to determine how much I got paid for each credit.
And also supplement, thank you, Troy and Iman. On a regular basis, SRECTrade will provide newsletters and other information products so that you know where the market has been, and you can answer the question. Like Troy said, look into your account, see what you got, but also look at the reports. You can go to CARB directly, or you can just look at the reports that we're going to share with you proactively that say, here's where market pricing has been. So you'll have that data.
Kind of like looking at those bar chart indicators on stocks and stuff, or Forex.
If you like that kind of stuff, you'll have it.
You mentioned about like the timeliness of it. How far back can you retroactively claim your credits?
Iman, would you take that one?
Yep, I can take that. Not that far back. So essentially, once a quarter is gone, you won't be able to generate credits and essentially monetize that usage anymore, because the program does not allow you to retroactively claim them. I guess this goes back to my earlier point in that if you're already running this clean equipment, the best time to have gotten started was when you first deployed them. I guess the second best time is now.
And in terms of engaging to learn more, shoot, you don't need to have any eligible assets now. All of us are having to think about how we start to buy, lease, whatever, deploy, and fund the operation of these pieces of equipment. So even if you don't have the equipment, start learning now. There's no cost to the education. It's absolutely fundamental to making different, more informed decisions as you move forward, especially in a very complex, costly kind of decision.
That on that note, that's a good point to open up the if you'd like to learn more question for the polling. So I'm just going to launch that so you guys can say yes or no you'd like to learn more from SRECTrade, and they can contact you directly. But I would also like to keep the Q&A going. So audience members, feel free to click your choice. And another question we got in through the chat was, is there a tool available to estimate my revenue from LCFS?
Yep. Iman, would you take that one?
Yep, absolutely. So if you already have some baseline numbers for your usage, so it would be, your ballpark figures for your estimated kilowatt usage, We have a very nifty tool. We have a LCFS credit calculator phone app that you can download, available for both Android and iPhone users. So it's just download the app, plug in some numbers, you can play around with it, and you can find out your values. But if you would like to know, you know, if you have multiple pieces of equipment, you want to project out, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, definitely reach out to us. As Mike mentioned earlier, we'd be happy to provide an analysis on your fleet, your future fleet, and provide revenue estimates on this program.
Yep.
Thanks.
And
Is there a minimum for participation in the LCFS program?
no, there's not. And for some, it might be a question, is a small opportunity worth it? In our eyes, and the way our company is built, every single charging station, every single hydrogen fuel cell piece of equipment, every piece has value. And we've got clients that are industry leaders with global scale. We've got clients that have literally 1 or 2 charging stations. And we work with many that have none yet, just because it's such a, right now, there's so much learning and formulating go forward plans that incorporate an understanding of low carbon fuel standard. Troy, did you have anything else to share there on that? When's the time to get started, and is anything too small or too big?
Well, I can only share my experience. We started with 2 yard tractors, right? So we quickly added a small fleet of forklifts, and then another fleet of forklifts, and now we're adding level 2 chargers for workplace charging that just got put on our recent resources with SRECTrade. And our heavy duty tractor chargers are now on there too. So we're looking forward to growth in our LCFS credits and net sales, and we're gonna take those funds and reinvest it and do more.
Now you're also doing solar, aren't you?
Absolutely, yeah. We're looking forward to taking advantage of these renewable energy credits as well. We appreciate the fact that before our solar was activated, but we still had some LCFS credits in the pipe that SRECTrade, looked at it and was able to secure some renewable energy credits to help amplify the return on our LCFS credits at the time. So now we'll be able to take advantage of our own renewable energy credits.
That's cool. Thanks, Troy. I think you're on mute, Eric.
Yeah.
Sorry, I muted myself so that you didn't hear the garbage truck driving by.
We'll edit that out after the fact.
Yeah. Since you mentioned solar, there was a question about multiple, I guess you would call them media charging types. Is this only available per site, like only electric or only solar, or can I mix and match my sources?
I can take that.
All yours.
Yeah, so we can definitely help you manage diverse range of your clean equipment. It just depends on whether they qualify or are eligible to generate credits. So of course, electric vehicles are one, solar assets. If you also have hydrogen fueling stations or CNG fueling stations, we can help you determine your eligibility to generate credits off of that. When you look at different fuel types, they already, it's just within the program itself, within the fuel types, there are already different nuances that you would have to manage. So I guess we do that for you, and we help you determine your eligibility and feasibility to generate credits based on the fuel and asset types.
Got it. A couple of our members in the audience I know have multiple facilities. Are you able to transfer credits between facilities, or how does that work if I have, let's say I have a yard here in Ontario and another one over, off of in Carson? Am I able to get points from both sides?
Yep. Absolutely. So, any of your different facilities that are, that have these clean vehicles, clean equipment that are running, we can definitely onboard them. We can help you keep track of them. That's the online platform that Troy was talking about, that you can essentially view the different asset types at your different sites, and you can monitor how much they're making for you from the LCFS program. And I don't know if you want to add a little bit more, Troy, to how you manage the different, the different assets at different locations, and how's that working for you?
Like you said, it's consolidated. It really doesn't matter where these are located. They're under our company banner, and they're just given different group names, if you want to call it that, and or account names. And we keep track of them that way. And it's very easy for me to see from my account statements that certain equipment at certain locations where those net funds apply to. And I'm able to give that again to like a controller so that he can manage those funds as they come in and keep track of them.
So I want to supplement the discussion with something particular to the South Coast Air Quality Management District under a new program that is known as WARE, or the Indirect Source Rule. There are mechanisms that may sound similar. So points and how you transfer points within a company or across facilities. Just know that that program that is a South Coast AQMD program is completely separate from California LCFS. Completely separate. In some ways they may sound similar, but they are very different, okay? So please don't be confused. Know that the California LCFS program is something that you can do while also meeting your separate requirements under the WARE program, okay? So we've worked directly with the program leads for ISR WARE. CARB has made it clear that, again, like all these other programs, they are stackable. So get started. The ISR, we understand where it's still going through some final gyrations, approval, debate, and we know it's not easy, but it is going to impose extra complexity and cost. Let's get started and fund what we can as quickly as we can using LCFS to help you meet your obligations as well for WARE.
Yeah, you're not kidding about WARE being complicated. Trying to follow that one is a little bit nuts. On that topic of stackability, you mentioned that there are stackable grants and programs. Can you give our audience a little bit of a taste of what folks are what they're stacking your program with?
Sure, and just broader landscape, there are grant incentive programs that provide dollars up front to help reduce the capital cost. So you need cash. If that electric vehicle costs 2 times the cost, you might be able to get capital dollars up front in a grant that means you only have to pay half of the sticker price, right? So those are like HVIP, CORE, Carl Moyer grants at a federal level, VW grants, DERA diesel emission reduction grants, etc. They're one-time grants to help pay for the initial purchase and deployment or installation, vehicle, fueling infrastructure, the things, the pipes, the electrical infrastructure running up to the charging station, etc. Then, in addition, you've got the programs that are ongoing. So California LCFS provide an ongoing income stream to help pay for the continuing operations and ongoing deployment as a funding source. Those are all stackable, okay? Troy, maybe you could share some specifics for your situation, what you've been stacking.
Well, HVIP was one of them. We bought 2 electric yard tractors, and we used HVIP, which paid, like Mike just described, paid about 50% of the sticker price. And we are getting LCFS credits for those 2 trucks. So that's the stackability in that particular program. We're also involved in a larger project that's funded by CARB and South Coast AQMD. And those vehicles in that project are also electric, and so the chargers and the electricity going into them are all accumulating LCFS credits, and we're netting the returns on those credits.
Great, thanks. You touched on this earlier about some of the regulatory requirements for the spending of the proceeds. Can you touch a little bit more on what's an eligible purchase with it, or how you can help them make sure that they have their compliance documentation in order?
I can take that.
Thanks,
Yep.
Iman.
Yeah, so of course, if you look back at the goal of this LCFS program is to continue the transition away from gasoline and diesel vehicles and equipment towards cleaner alternatives. So that is essentially what CARB is aiming to do with this program. As such, there are certain spending requirements when it comes to what you can do with the LCFS credit proceeds. You know, you can't use that money to fund a vacation to Vegas. But what you can use it for is to continue that transition to electric fleet. Now, this includes, you know, initiating clean energy or further transportation programs. This includes providing free or discounted charging at charging stations that, you know, you have on your property. This is pretty broad requirements. So this is definitely something that we can help you determine when it comes to the parameters of your spending requirements. Do you have anything else to add to that, Mike?
I think you nailed it. Thanks, Iman.
Got it. So in short, the answer is it depends, and let us help you with that.
Got it. I'll go ahead and put out a last call for questions. We're nearing that 11 o'clock hour. But from your response, you kind of brought up another question. Let's say I have charging equipment that's open to the public. If it's not my own vehicle, like I don't own the actual unit charging, can I still get credits generated from that charging activity?
That's a great question, and that is a very important one, because when it comes to the charging stations themselves, what determines the ownership claim to the credits is who owns the charging stations. So if you are the owner of the charging station, by default, you get to claim the LCFS credits, even though, you know, they're being used to charge public access or workplace, or even, you know, in your yard for your own fleet. One additional thing to note as well is that these credits can be contractually assigned to a third party. So in that case, CARB would need to see a paper trail showing that these credits have been contractually assigned to, of course, avoid any conflict when it comes to that, because these credits are very valuable. So people want to get their hands on it.
Yeah, and importantly there, in our experience, the fleets are going to realize the greatest benefit if the fleets are directly participating in the program, meaning they've got us, or somebody like us, but us educating them, making sure they have visibility to what the program really is about, what it could be worth, and on an ongoing basis to know what they're getting paid and why on which assets. Also up front, even before you get started, to help you weed through the thinking and clarification where you do or could have credit rights, and ensure you don't accidentally give them up, because it doesn't take much in contract language. And some of you may already have seen this happen, where somebody had some language in a contract for a piece of equipment or a service where you would have signed your credit rights away. So just be careful. We're able to help you understand that better. And we think you having a direct relationship, you know, through us in this case, to understand the program, to really know how to apply it, helps you make better strategic decisions, technology decisions, and helps you make as much as you can very transparently, knowing what the program's worth and how much you can and will get paid under that program, okay? If you sign the credits away, you lose that transparency to what the regs are trying to tell you in technology paths and fuels that are favored and what you could be making.
Great. I think we'll, you know, I didn't have any more rolling questions coming in, so I think maybe we'll call it now at 11. You know, first off, I want to thank you guys for presenting. It's you know, a lot of these regulatory programs, they get a little bit complicated because a lot of guys, you know, you're in the business to move cargo, not to, you know, manage what CARB wants you to file every day. You know what I mean? And I also want to say thank you, Troy, because it's very helpful to have a motor carrier perspective on these things. It's, you know, we appreciate hearing from our, you know, our members and sponsors that run the products and programs, but having a user on is helpful for folks to kind of get a little bit more information. I also want to thank the audience for being here. I'll send everybody a follow-up email with everyone's contact information, but I'll turn it over for some last words from Mike.
Just thank you everyone for attending. Thanks so much, Iman, for your help. And thank you, Troy, for being here to provide the voice of the customer and the market in this case, and what really is real and possible, how you've applied the programs, and just Eric and to the group, thanks for allowing us this time with you today. We appreciate it.
Great, thanks. All right, everybody. We'll, sorry, Iman, go ahead.
Just wanted to say thank you. That's it.
We'll be back in person again in August. We're skipping July because a lot of folks are on vacation. I know Iman was at the last one. Maybe you can meet her in person in the August one. Or if not, then, you know, we'll have DreTech in September. So if you need any information about HTA going on, just shoot me an email and we'll help you out. All right, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. And if you need anything, give us a call.
Thank
Take care,
you.
all. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.